What's up, TGC fam? Hope you're doing okay. I hope you're hanging in there. Anybody bored yet? Anybody hanging out in their kids' rooms playing basketball? Oh, make it rain. The bank is open. Look out. You'll notice I figured out a way to make sure I was in front of some books for this video. That's part of my contract. I hope you've been enjoying these daily reflections. I actually wasn't meant to go today, but stepping in with a little hiccup, and I'm glad to be doing it. You might not know this, but today, Wednesday, is Annunciation Day. I didn't know that either, actually. And to just let all the mystery out of the air, I read ahead, and so I'm going to share a reading from this morning's lectionary. If you read in the Book of Common Prayer. And it's Annunciation Day, which is the day that the church celebrates the angel Gabriel coming to Mary and giving her the news, giving her the promise that she was going to bear Jesus into the world, and that God was going to incarnate among us, that God was going to move onto the block, as they say. It was going to get into the middle of our story. And so it's quite a powerful day, an important moment to remember and celebrate. And I've never celebrated Annunciation Day in any of my years of being a follower of Christ. So I'm glad to know that it's today. And the Old Testament reading for Annunciation Day is Isaiah 52, verses 7 through 12. The first part of this will be familiar to many of you. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation, who say to Zion, your God reigns. Listen, your watchmen lift up their voices. Together they shout for joy. When the Lord returns to Zion, they will see it with their own eyes. Burst into songs of joy together, you ruins of Jerusalem, for the Lord has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. The Lord will lay bare his holy arm in the sight of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. Depart, go out from there, touch no unclean thing. Come out from it and be pure, you who carry the articles of the Lord's house. But you will not leave in haste or go in flight, for the Lord will go before you. The God of Israel will be your rear guard. There's a lot of prophetic implications in this passage. This is Isaiah writing to Jerusalem, writing to the people of God when many of them were still in exile. And the beginning verse in verse 7, how beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, is something that we're familiar with. Good news, when it is brought in a timely manner, is such a lift to our souls, is such a lift to our spirits. And as people of the gospel of Jesus, we are a people of good news. And good news is something that we long for in the overarching story of what God is doing in the world. Good news is something we long for and how God's grace crashes into our own lives, but it's also something we get to share around. But the timing is not in our hands, and that's one of the things that's really challenging about life, particularly in a time of immense difficulty. But if you try to rush ahead and give, like circumstantially, give good news before the moment that it's actually the circumstances have changed, right? We see this sort of like in our wider conversation, even around this pandemic. It's like knowing when is the moment to say, do this or do that, or here's what we can expect. And there's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now. And so how do we know when is an appropriate moment to say something encouraging, or to say, let's ground our hope in this, or when we don't know what the circumstances are going to look like in a day, a week, a month, a year? How do we still be people of good news in the middle of that? And I think that there's resources in this reading in Isaiah for that. One, there's a prophetic picture that's centuries away still, that there's ultimately going to be those who proclaim peace, proclaim good tidings, proclaim salvation. This is the language of the angel speaking to Mary, which is going to come many, many years from the writing of this. But even for those who are waiting to get out of exile in Isaiah's day, there's still a moment that God is going to have to act to set them free. And I like in verse 12, it says, you will not leave in haste or go in flight. That basically, God is going to arrange things in such a way that their life is going to be saturated and surrounded with Yahweh, even as they're coming out of exile and coming back to Jerusalem, coming back to this place of promise. And so when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and said, help is on the way, salvation is breaking into the world, God is getting involved, he's plunging himself into the middle of our story, he's taking on the suffering that all of us experience, all the beauty that the incarnation of Christ represents and means for us. It still was going to be months and months before Mary saw the fruition of that promise. I mean, she was going to know before anyone else. But even when the baby was born 9 months later, that baby was still not going to be able to hold its head up. It was going to be 30 years before Jesus began his public ministry. And so there's good news and there's layers of good news along the way, but the timing of the ultimate good news, the ultimate relief that we're longing for, is not in our hands. And that means what is in our hands is being honest with God about where we really are, and praying prayers of lament is totally okay. Mourning things that you've lost, mourning the disappointment that you might be experiencing. There's been way too many texts or phone calls in the last couple of days where I've been talking to friends who've lost a job, who aren't certain about what the future is going to be. And I just want to say to you, church, in the middle of those moments of exile, of disappointment, of despair, of confusion, lament is okay. Endurance means that you go through pain, and it doesn't lack courage whatsoever to be very honest about the uncertainty and honest about the difficulty. But we are still good news people. Good news is our story. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring a message of peace, who bring a message of salvation. And ultimately, the final consummation of our longing is in God's hands, but we get to see glimpses of the good news all along the way. We get to share these moments of kindness, these moments of honesty, even honest lament, even honest sharing of our hearts in the middle of pain. And so on this day of Annunciation, where the angel came to Mary and said, help is on the way, God is coming to get into the middle of the story, to fulfill his promises. And we look back at the prophecy of it centuries before, we can hold on to the hope that even though the timing might not be working exactly as we would choose, our God is faithful, and we'll keep his covenant, we'll keep his promise. I hope that encourages you today. I hope even if you need a little while to breathe and press into it, that you'll take that time. I hope these daily reflections continue to be an encouragement to you, continue to lift up the voices of many in our church, to strengthen and encourage and give hope to one another. So God bless you on this Annunciation Day. Who knew? Make a few baskets, and God bless you all.